Righto. Thank you very much, boys and girls. Senator Siewert.
Thank you. I want to go into, first off, the overall structure now of the new programs, and then I want to actually traverse the funding allocation for Landcare. First off, the new program, what's its name going to be? The amalgamation of Caring for Our Country and the Landcare program.
Senator John Talbot, Assistant Secretary for the Landcare branch. There's a range of decisions on the new program the new program is being developed at the moment. So things such as the name of the program are still being worked on.
Senator, the government's election proposed to create a national Landcare program, so that'll be the matters that are being worked on at the moment.
Okay, but the problem we have here is Landcare already has an understanding of what we're talking about, Landcare.
Yeah.
And so by calling it a national Landcare program,
Yes.
we're actually talking still about, as I understand it from reading what I've read and also what was said next door yesterday, is that it's still going to incorporate an area of what we would more normally call environment type grants and sustainable agriculture.
Correct.
So we're actually now going to have two names or two understandings of what Landcare is. We're going to have Landcare as in Landcare that we've been doing for 25 years or in fact longer, and Landcare, which is a generic term.
So the government's election commitment sees this coming together as a unified, under a unified banner of a national Landcare program, and as would have been indicated to you by Environment, it's going to have environment component and an agriculture component.
Which is administrated separately.
Yes.
But we'll just have one name.
We'll have one name, which previously there'd been the Caring for Our Country program. The government is going to create the National Landcare program, and as Mr Talbot indicated, the precise implementation of that are matters that the government's working through right now.
How much money did it cost to separate out the departments and separate out the administration and the names to put them separately, which was just done less than 12 months ago? No, this year. And how much will it cost to bring it back together again?
The Caring for Our Country, the separation out was done within existing resources for the two departments, agriculture and environment.
And how much is allocated to bring it back together?
In terms of departmental expenditure, it would be, again, we would manage that within the departmental allocations of the two departments. Okay,
it'd be fair to say though that while officers are doing that, they're not doing other things that would actually actually deliver the programs.
So, sorry, can I just clarify your question? You talked about bringing back together again. Are you saying for the staff themselves to come back together?
No,
okay,
I understand.
no.
I understand that we've now we had it together, then we separated, and then we're bringing it
that's right.
back together
just
again.
misunderstood.
Okay, thank you. What's the timeline? I understand you're working on it now. Is there going to be a staggered timeline for the grants, or once you've developed it up? I understand you're aiming for towards the beginning of next year to get the process underway.
So I think the commitment was 6 months.
From when?
I haven't got the exact words in front of me.
So Jenny Barber here, Acting First Assistant Secretary. We're looking at starting consultation early in the new year and looking that we can start the new program commencing the new financial year is our timeframes at the moment.
Okay. So the commitments that were given for grants up until now are going to be met?
Well, it's still under consideration by the government, some of the uncommitted funds.
So certainly where there's contractual arrangements, they will continue.
Sorry, that's the fundamental question, isn't it? Where there are contractual arrangements, So there have been some approvals given and contracts not
Entered
yet
into?
finalised, entered
Correct.
into, sorry, appropriate term, that may not be funded. Am I correct in understanding that?
The government has to consider essentially those commitments and the other funding choices.
Okay, and how much are we talking about in terms of what has been committed but not contractually finalised? I'm sure you understand what I'm asking. And do proponents know this? Sorry? Other than having read what they read in the media?
I'm just checking.
They do know that we're waiting on government decisions around funding, the ones that haven't been
Okay. So
contracted.
what's the scale of the expenditure and the number of projects, and what programs are they across?
So currently for the 13-14 financial year, the allocated but not yet contracted is 17,159,000.
17,159,000. That's a lot of money. So is that over just I understand correctly, isn't it? It's this financial year.
That's
And which programs are we talking about?
Mr Talbot, can you help me with that?
Yeah, certainly. Look, the main area that has been assessed but not contracted is in the area of innovation grants. Other things that will be will be under consideration are things like with Landcare Australia Limited.
So just on that one, I am going to come back. But just on that one, we did have Landcare Australia Limited here previously. Given that we're now going to have a whole program that's about Landcare, I understand there's a commitment to the National Landcare Network of $1 million. I think it's right. What's happening with the Landcare Australia money?
At the moment, the situation is we're in the process of designing a program, working out what the priorities will be, and from there, a number of these other things will be under consideration as to by the government in terms of how they fit into the program.
Okay, so we already know that Landcare Australia is essentially spending money it hasn't got at the moment.
Yep.
And I'm not casting aspersions on that. I'm saying or nasturtiums. They are trying to keep the programs going to support Landcare. Are you saying that they won't know for 6 months now?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Okay. So could you please clarify for me when these organisations and proponents will know?
So, Senator, what we know obviously is Landcare Australia Limited said today that there is pressure there that they're experiencing. As Mr Talbot and Ms Barbara said, there's the overall design of the program, and that will work through that time frame that Ms Barbara talked about with a view of starting next year. But we know that there's immediate issues to be made, decisions to be made against some funds that have not been determined this financial year.
That's the 17
That's the
mil.
17, and we're providing advice to the Minister around that. We obviously working through the whole package. I don't think I can put a timeline on it, but I think we're talking sort of days or a week, not weeks or months.
For this whole 17 million or just Landcare Australia?
So this is at the moment looking at the whole package.
Right.
And that's partly why we just need to get our head around all of it, and obviously to help the government get their head around it.
Does that
So-
mean because... Pardon me, interrupt.
Yeah, but I need
Yeah,
I need to get to this
Go on,
list.
Go on.
Sorry, can you keep going? Landcare Limited, Landcare Australia Limited.
Look, there's other things that will be under consideration by the government, and they will include things like, for example, the Australian Landcare Council, and that will be under consideration as a possible area. There's also things like the National Landcare Conference that will be having a look at.
This is the 25th anniversary one?
Yeah, and there's also, this is preparations for that, yes, and there's also things that are run each year.
So when you say looking at that, you're saying whether you're going to fund it or not, or is it, sorry?
Look, I'd prefer to say it's really things that will be under consideration.
Okay. Can I clarify before we move on? The funding that was, the Landcare funding that has been now taken out of Landcare and put over to drought, was that funds that had been allocated but not contracted, or was it funds that hadn't been allocated at all?
Senator, if I can just come back to the first premise of your question, the government's made a very clear commitment that funds for the National Landcare program will not be reduced, and that commitment remains. There has been a decision to make...
For Landcare, but not for Caring for Our Country.
So the Caring for Our Country program with its new name, the National Landcare program, so that the Caring for Our Country budget will not be reduced.
Hang on, did you say Caring for Our Country won't be reduced?
That's right. So
So-
I used its new name, sorry, so that's just the
Okay,
confusion.
that's hence my point about this program.
That was my fault, sorry, that confusion.
So it won't be reduced, but it depends then on what you allocate and call Landcare though, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because now you're calling drought relief Landcare, which is what the Minister was doing in his media release.
So I'm
Or
just...
some would argue sustainable agriculture via providing sufficient water is in fact good for the long-term sustainability of our environment.
And some would also argue that we don't spend enough on sustainable agriculture and on Landcare, and that program has been chopped into for lot.
The ones
for
you were
other
in the lines
programs,
with, you signed up to.
for other programs. And so that's why I'm being really clear about when you say not cut, doesn't mean the definition won't be changed, which is effectively a cut.
So just can I get through my thick
Hang on,
here?
let him answer the
Yeah,
question.
but I want to
Let him answer the question and then,
So
otherwise we won't get an answer.
it's up to the government, this government as it was up to the previous government within the design of the program to take decisions of how that program money is used, and that's the prerogative of the government.
Okay, so, thank you for that. But my original question there was the money that was announced two weeks ago for cuts to the reallocation of the funding. Does that come under the heading of there was a commitment given to some programs, and that haven't now been contractualised? Yes. Was that yes? That's what I'm asking. Was that funding under that heading?
So there are funds that are uncommitted and unallocated. So these were not
In
funds
Landcare,
in Landcare, and there are
but
How
not
come?
the first cousin of Landcare.
and in other programs.
Okay, so you hadn't expended, you hadn't allocated.
So they had not gone out for rounds of grants. They had not been people putting in proposals such as the National Landcare.
Because you hadn't opened the rounds yet.
That's right.
Can I assist?
So there won't be any rounds there.
Can I just, like this Landcare, which is a traditional thing, as I suppose you know, but what's this other one you've renamed? You've rebadged Caring for Our Country, have you?
That's what we've just been having a discussion about.
So is there two lots of Landcares, or is it all lumped into one? Caring for Our Country.
The new program
Conjob.
will be Landcare, which will be
Will include
Landcare plus the Caring for
Well,
Our
then
Country.
now, I'll just, with great respect, Landcare for some years has lost its way. It was a great thing, like 20 years ago, and it lost its way. You could get money for cars, conferences, all the things you could do, but if you wanted money for sow some trees, you couldn't get it. Right? That's what happened. Like bloody firefighting, couldn't get money to pump hose for a tank, but you could go to Coffs Harbour for a conference. It lost its way, but just in the last 18 months, for some reason, it was getting back on track. And one of the reasons I think, Senator Siewert, that money would be there, because they were too bloody disorganised to get out into the bush and to spend too much time in town to allocate the money and get people interested again, because it was a great thing, like when it kicked off, and it taught the farmers a lot of good things. But Caring for Our Country is a con job. There are a bunch of bloody crooks getting money out of that. And if you want me to take you through it, I can take you through it.
No, please. We've been
But I
there
mean,
how
hang
many
on,
times?
You guys said there was going to be an inquiry into that bloody disgraceful episode between Bathurst and Mudgee. I want to know what happened to the inquiry. I mean, a property that was worth $230,000, and a person that worked in the government went and got the bloke and said, "Do you mind if we get an inspection of this property?" And the catchment management bloke that did I talked to him. Yeah, but she knows me. We'll come back to that.
No, because then we
will
lose
run out
track.
of time.
We'll run out of time.
I think there are some important.
There's nothing more important than the con job that's going on in bloody caring for our
We'll
country.
each select our own priorities.
Is there a simple
Senator
answer
Heffernan,
for that
but-
question, and then we'll get it out of the way?
But look, I think we want to know the answer to these
Yeah.
questions that Senator Siewert is answering, and I must admit I'm a little bit confused as to what money has been allocated and what money hasn't,
Exactly.
and I think if we can get some clarity on that.
So why was there some unallocated money? No, it's not. If you want to answer, go over there. Why was there unallocated? What is the unallocated money? It was money that was allocated for Landcare, but hadn't gone out for rounds yet. Is that correct?
There was money that the previous government had not determined exactly what it was going to do with it, and there had not been a round put out. I think the figure was it about 4.9?
5.9.
5.9 million.
So where's the other? But you've reallocated 10 million from Landcare.
No,
Senator, I think we're probably jumping ahead. The government's made a $10 million allocation, that's right. The precise details around that allocation are something to be reported in the mid-year economic and fiscal outlook. That'd be the normal time when the full budget accounting is done. So the $10 million is been publicly announced. That will be funded from uncommitted funds within the department's programs. And the final details of that would be subject to announcement in May.
So is this additional Landcare? Is this additional to the Landcare money that is already budgeted for?
So this is within the overall envelope of uncommitted funds within the administered programs managed by the department.
That's where the 10's.
And the breakdown of that will be something to be reported in the mid-year economic
But
and
it was
fiscal outlook.
still badged as Landcare money though.
No, it's not necessarily Landcare money. This is the point, and the mid-year economic and fiscal
So
outlook will
what you've got
report
to
on
do, what you're saying is I've got to wait till mid-year to my info to find out whether you've actually spent Landcare money or some other money.
Well,
That's what it's saying, isn't it?
It will all be uncommitted money, and if you're using Landcare in the broader sense of the National Landcare Program, that would be something to be...
No, I'm using it. See, this is quickly going to get tedious about Landcare. Not Landcare tedious, I don't want that on the record. I mean, what's what? I mean, what we normally call Landcare, different to the new program that you're talking about. So why is it reported then that it has come out of Landcare?
I think I
money?
made this point before, that there's uncommitted funds in caring for our country.
So it's come out of Caring for a Country funds.
As I was saying, Senator, the announcement of the breakdown of funding would be something in the mid-year economic and fiscal outlook report.
So, right,
I'm
I'm going to run out of
probably
time.
gone about as far as we can go tonight.
In other words, you're not going to tell me it's come out. I've got to wait. Right.
For my info.
The committed but uncontracted money, does that include regional groups? NRM regional groups?
for this
Have
financial year, no. So they've got their funds this financial year.
For 13, 14?
Yeah.
Yes.
All of them? All of the money?
All the regions, Senator, have got their money for the first year for their regional allocation.
Okay. So, but you've carefully said that, so do I take it from that they cannot be guaranteed that they've got, because it was a whole new commitment round, this round, wasn't it?
It was a whole new commitment round.
Yeah. So for 3, no longer. 3 years?
There,
I'm trying to remember.
there was various arrangements, Senator, depending on the circumstances of the region.
Okay, I do. Yeah, okay.
And if I can add, Senator, the New South Wales regions were being adjusted
Yes.
by the state government. So
Yep.
given that, the decision was taken to give that 1 year until that adjustment process worked through
Yeah,
and then to
yeah.
come back.
Okay, I take that on board. I do remember that. But what you're saying is that they've now been funded for their 13-14 year and they've got the money, but there's no guarantee that the remaining money under the programs that were negotiated under the new round is going to be guaranteed.
I don't understand the question.
Is that right?
I'm not sure we understand
Okay,
the question.
they negotiated a whole new funding package, as I
regions, yes.
recall. They've got this year's, but if what I can understand by your hesitancy is that the out years, that they can't take it as read that that'll stand.
So most of them have got their 3 years funding, except
Landcare or Caring for Our Country?
No, there's a whole package of funding that goes to regional NRM groups.
that's right.
So let's get away from, at the moment, confusing
So
things on the two Landcare terms.
So
So
the
the whole
majority
pack-
have got 3 year funding, except for those ones that we talked about in New South Wales who've got the 1 year.
Yeah, okay. But signed off and money in their bank is just the first financial year. The reason I'm asking this is because you made a point about saying for 13-14.
So they're contracted. I thought your
Yes.
question was specifically into this financial year, that's why I answered that
Oh,
way.
I beg your pardon.
So they are contracted over those 3 years, so we have signed
So they
agreements.
will get that funding.
We have signed agreements.
Okay.
Can I advise you that the next question is your last question?
Oh, what am I going to? Okay.
I'm going to go, you're going to get time, and Senator, you're going to get 10 minutes.
And me?
You can get whatever you
Okay,
like.
so my last question then is the money that was committed during the election to National Landcare Network, or the $1 million, is that guaranteed? Is that part of the, so is that part of these under this ongoing process, or is that a promise that's parked separately?
It is an election commitment and it's something we're working through as part of the design of the program, Senator.
And that's to the actual Landcare, that national group that's essentially a peak body for the other Landcare rep, the state Landcare rep bodies. Is that the network we're talking about?
I think
This is us up.
Look, I think I've got to be careful answering that question without the detail being finalised, Senator. I mean, we've got the election commitment and I agree it's $1 million, but I think in terms of the design and how it's actually distributed, there's still some decisions to be made.
Okay.
We are most grateful for your intrusive question.